Hi, I'm Jeanette Sutton,
And I'm Eddie Bertola.
and we welcome you to another episode of the Alerting Authority. And as always, we encourage you to subscribe, follow, listen, and most importantly, to participate in these podcasts. We want your questions, your concerns, ideas, problems, pain points, and your success stories, so we as alerting authorities can better do our jobs and make our community safer.
And one way to do that is with great software. And one of our sponsors, HQE Systems, who's a disabled, veteran owned software company, they are full service and they not only do that software, but they also specialize in cutting edge life safety and electronic security solutions. They can help provide solutions to the pain points that you are experiencing. They have the latest generation of outdoor warning sirens, indoor notifications, electronic mass notifications, and you can control it all from one piece of software. It is HQ Easy. So, yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Today we have an amazing guest. I'm so excited to welcome to the podcast Vance Taylor. Luis Vance Taylor is the chief of the Office of Access and Functional Needs at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Vance leads the team responsible for ensuring the needs of individuals with disabilities and persons with access or functional considerations are identified and integrated into the state's emergency management systems before, during, and after disasters. Vance was appointed by President Biden to serve as a member of the President's National Infrastructure Advisory Council in 2022. As a member of the NIAC, Vance advises the White House on how to reduce physical and cyber risks and how to improve the security and resilience of the nation's critical infrastructure sectors. He was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and Vance was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy as a child and uses a power wheelchair. He has worked in Washington, D.C. as an advisor for two different members of Congress, directed security policy at a National Water Association, and been a principal at a ranked Homeland Security and Emergency Management consulting firm. Vance is a nationally recognized public speaker and advocate for individuals with disabilities. He has a master's degree in Homeland Security from the University of Connecticut and an undergraduate degree from Brigham Young University in Communications. Go Cougs! And we welcome you to the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's always good to hang out.
Well, I look forward to this, and we're going to take opportunities to rise and shout, right?
There
That's
it
a plug
is.
for all the BYU people out there.
That's right. Oh, good. If you know, then you know.
That's right. And again, we're not saying there aren't great schools in California. There are, where you represent. There are, but it's always fun just to hit your alma mater just a little bit and do that. But I mentioned before, as we were offline, you have done a ton out there. I made the joke earlier to you. I'm like, all you have to do is go to space, and like you've checked every box for different things. But what I'd like to do is, as we look at the bio, just kind of break it up a little bit. If you're comfortable, just to tell us a little bit more about your background, some of your experiences early in your career with disaster and emergency management, kind of how it all kind of led you to where you are today.
Yeah. So it is good to hang out. And thanks for having me. I think this podcast you're doing is super cool. So, and it's super important information. So this is great. I'll try not to, you know, I don't know, bring down the tremendous work you've done so far.
Oh, you just add to it. It's amazing.
In terms of, background, so I'm a native Californian. I'll try and give you like the elevator speech version of it. Um, so my mom came to this country from El Salvador when she was 22 and learned English, went to a night class, got a GED, associates, a bachelor's. Um, there's three kids. I got diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 7. So two things happened very shortly thereafter. First, dad took off. And so now it's mom raising 3 kids. Um, and second, we went to see the doctor, and he came in and said, "You've got muscular dystrophy. You will not go to high school. You'll never go to college. You'll live with your mom for the rest of your life." And he looked at my mom and said, "For your sake and his, set the bar low." And my mom, understanding that hard work and education were the keys to unlocking opportunity in this country, uh, said to me when we got home, "Hey, that guy's smart in terms of science and medicine, maybe, but he doesn't know you, and he doesn't know that you've got a great attitude. You're a smart kid, and you're going to work hard. So if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Um, so don't ever let anyone outwork you, and don't ever become bitter. Just get better." And so, as a 7-year-old, I can remember consciously making a decision that that's what I was going to do. Um, and that's kind of just been my guiding light, I think, from that point forward. So, you know, spoiler alert, as you got from the bio, I went to high school, I did college. Um, Also was able to do some really cool things. I ended up in DC for what was supposed to be a 3-month internship with a member of Congress. And a month in, I got offered a job. And it was interesting because it was after 9/11. And so I was doing immigration issues. After 9/11, that turned into Homeland Security, right? We went from uh, immigration issues that were like sort of your standard traditional uh, visas and that sort of issue to how do we keep Al Qaeda from coming across the border? And this mantra at the time that we started to stand up what became the Homeland Security Department was guns, guards, gates. So I ended up changing offices. I worked with Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, which was great because she was on the Homeland Security Committee. And Hurricane Katrina hit. And we had this realization that, hold on a minute, guns, guards, gates, like you can't buy risk down to zero. Eventually, something's going to break. And it almost became that thing of like, well, it kind of doesn't matter if it's a bomb or a hurricane. What I need to be able to do is respond and recover. And so that's how I began to shift um, from exclusively looking at Homeland Security to understanding that balance and the relationship between Homeland Security and emergency management. Um, and from there, I just never looked back. I led security policy at a national association, consulted for a while. Um, and then this really cool opportunity in California came about where after being out of state for 13 years and getting married and having kids, the governor asked me to help California develop a more inclusive emergency management system. There was a really clear recognition that before, during, or after any incident or event, the people that get hit the hardest, where you see the most human suffering and the most loss of life, are individuals with what we refer to as access or functional needs. And I think the easiest way to think about that is as like an umbrella term. And under that umbrella, you've got people with disabilities, right? Physical, developmental, intellectual. Um, and then you've got underserved communities, people who don't speak English, people who are transportation disadvantaged, anyone with a chronic injury or illness or in late stages of pregnancy. And so my mission was to help emergency managers understand what was happening and to start to change the way that we go about planning and preparing and moving away from we're going to get emergency managers together with other emergency managers to make plans for the community and getting into planning with people, not for people. Um, and so that shift, I think, is what has enabled us 10 years later to be national leaders in the space.
Such an incredible story, and your leadership has been felt across the country. And so I'm tremendously appreciative of being able to hear you and the things that you've been sharing in different communities. It affects my ability to do my work better, so that we can help alerting authorities to improve what they do. And so your voice is just so powerful and so clear. So thank you for sharing some of your background with us, Vance. One of the books that you and I were sharing about on email recently was the book that was written by Angela Frederick, called Disabled Power, where she writes about Winter Storm Uri that occurred in Texas and knocked out infrastructure for days and days, and how it was so devastating for people who have uh, chronic medical conditions and other access needs, and just really incredible storytelling, all based in her interviews with people who were survivors and caregivers. And I know that you were interviewed as part of that work that she did. She had one section on alerts and warnings, and it was brief, but what it was very important for me to read about it. And I wondered if you might be able to tell us how warnings have been communicated in the past that are not effective, because she characterizes them as being pretty ineffective during that storm. But kind of in a nutshell, what doesn't work for the population that we need to be really focused on today in this conversation?
So, yeah, it's interesting is we can talk about the things that I think we all recognize, right? That you get these alerts that are filled with jargon. So I'm like, I don't know what that is. Or tell you danger, but there's no like action. Like, what am I supposed to do to be safe or prepare? Um, and then you get into things like, hey, it's only coming in English. So if I don't speak English, or if I can't read in English, then that's a problem for me. But I think one of the things that we forget is that even beyond the content of the alert, the timing of the alert matters. So, let me just give you an example. If you have somebody, let's say, with a disability, and you know, they get an alert at the same time their neighbor gets an alert. Well, their neighbor puts together a go bag, throws it in the trunk of their car, and takes off. But, the person with a disability might have to call a care attendant, wait for them to arrive, pack, which includes durable medical equipment and a lot of devices, um, wait for accessible transportation, resource to come pick them up. And all of those things take time. And when you've got a wildfire, let's say like you had in Southern California last year, that is consuming essentially a football field a second, then you don't have time. And so this, regardless of what the message says, if you don't get it early enough, then it's all for naught. Um, and so I think that's something that has been overlooked. The notion of like, well, we don't want to alert too early. We almost want to wait till the last possible second to put out the alert. And we have to move away from that. And there are ways that we can have people opt into systems that essentially asks alerting authorities to send them early notifications. And those systems need to exist. And we have to promote them. And we need to work with community-based organizations to ensure that people with access and functional needs are opting in and signing up for those systems. And then we can talk about all the other stuff, um, about accessibility and format and content. But if we don't get it in time, it just doesn't matter.
It's when I share academic research with audiences and I talk about what we call the warning response model, the first element in the sequence of the warning response model is getting the message. And we so frequently focus on getting the message as the technology, but you're raising such an important point. Not only is it the technology, which is the means of getting it to people, and it could be a phone or an email or a siren, but it's also the timing, which is critical. For people, it just takes longer.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you have to think about is, uh, look, if you've got an access or function need, everything just typically takes longer. If you know somebody, think of like an older adult in your life. Hey, we're taking grandma to go have dinner. Is that the same as when you were in high school and you and your buddies piled into a car and took off to Taco Bell? Or does it take a little longer, right? Everything just takes more time. Um, and then it of course means that we as emergency managers need to have systems in place ahead of time so that when the alert does go out, then we've got those systems activated and they're operational so that people can move forward in real time. Um, I always tell people that there's so much technology that's out there, but we're not utilizing it in innovative ways to move the needle in a meaningful way for this issue. And you've heard me, Jeanette, talk about that we've got, Alexa tells me when there's a package at my door, but she doesn't tell me when there's a red flag warning or an evacuation order, or Google Maps gets me to any restaurant anywhere I want to go. Um, but it doesn't automatically route the evacuation path that I need to get out safely. And I've got a smart home that adjusts temperature and lights, but those lights don't automatically flash when there's an emergency alert. And so those are things that we can utilize, and all those together, combined with inclusive planning, will result in less suffering and less loss of life.
No, I fully agree. And I mean, if you saw me, anybody in the audience, I'm writing stuff down here. Like I'm sure, hopefully, you guys are not while you're driving, though. Do not do that while you're driving. But if you're listening to it later, and I love again, what your mom said of don't get bitter, just get better. And that's something that I'm hoping that all emergency managers and alerting authorities and communities are willing to do as well. There's a lot of lessons that I think we've been learning at a very high cost. And it's something that I'm hoping that we're starting to address. And one of the things that I see is, again, I was an alerting authority for the state of California, or I was a part of one. And one thing that seems to be a fallacy is, we talk about, okay, we're going to send alerts, all these things, and we focus on the WIA, the wireless emergency alert. Um,
Sure.
and at the same time, it seems like people are more reluctant to push out messages via the wireless emergency alert because of over alerting and some of the negative connotations that come with that. But just as you said, um, getting messages is one part, but getting them in advance for those that especially need extra time is vital, because the perfectly worded message to someone who doesn't have enough time to take the appropriate action, it doesn't do them any good. And with California, I mean, we have power issues that can happen, whether it's because of infrastructure or with the PSPS, right, where they will proactively shut down different zones in order to reduce chances of wildfire. So, with all of these things, you touched on a little bit of, opt in. Have there been things that you've seen in California that you feel are successful to help everyone, and I'm using the big everyone here, be
Sure.
able to get the message effectively and when they need it?
Yeah, so we're doing this thing, and it's new and it's going to take time, but it's called enhanced alerting. I want to just kind of talk through real quick what that is. So we hear a lot of people say there should be a disaster registry, right? Have a list of everybody that might need some sort of uh, additional support or assistance, and we'll use that list for doing everything from alerting to sending rides to get people out of their homes. And our official policy or stance, position, if you will, at Cal OES is don't have a disaster registry, right? They don't work, um, for a lot of reasons that I won't even get into. But what you can do is try and take a different bite at the same apple. So with enhanced alerting, what we've done in California is we, as Cal OES, will provide for free um, a platform for you to do your alert, warning, and notification. So if you say, well, I can't afford a platform, you can use ours for free. Now, if you would rather pay money for a different platform, that's up to you. But every jurisdiction has access to a free system. Um, and if you use that system, then you can also utilize enhanced alerting, which allows me as an individual in the community to say specifically, I would like advance warning. It also allows me to say, you know, this is a location area for me. But if you look at that on a map, it won't put a pin above my home, right? So it doesn't say, here's Vance, here's a wheelchair, and this is his address. What it will do, though, if I choose to give it this information, is say, in this neighborhood over here, you've got X number of individuals that use wheelchairs, um, and they need to be maybe supported if there's an evacuation. So, and they've signed up for early alert. So, a few things will happen. One is I'll get a message that says, "Hey, Vance, there's a wildfire, and right now you're okay, but it's moving in your direction, and we might go from an evacuation warning to an order," which then allows me to proactively call my care attendant, pack, and arrange for transportation. So if the order comes through, I'm ready when that happens. It also allows emergency managers to pre-position resources based on community needs. And it does all of that while respecting my privacy and leaving me in control of what gets shared with who. Um, this was a system that was put together in partnership with disability advocates and leaders in the space. And so it minimizes, my neighbor getting alert after alert after alert after alert that she doesn't want. Um, but it enables me to receive advanced notification, the benefit of prepositioned resources, and ultimately the time necessary in order to get out. And I can say which languages I prefer to receive notifications in, um, which in some jurisdictions include sign language. So that to me is a system that, while we're talking about it now as, hey, look, we just started doing this thing, I believe will become the standard that we just use across the board.
So I know that where I live right now, we're looking at getting a system for this type of enhanced alerting that actually offers an in-home box, if you will, that will send a message in different ways. But it has an interactive feature where it will ask if the person needs assistance evacuating, and if they hit yes on it, the information is transmitted essentially to dispatch or to law enforcement to let them know. So instead of doing door knocking. Um, and so like it's interesting seeing all of these advancements. Um, and obviously it's absolutely needed. And have you
Yeah.
seen a lot of good community, I would say, acceptance, or they're like, yes, like we're ready for this?
So this is good, right? Because it's not a registry. And part of what we're not doing is we're not saying, hey, Eddie, Jeanette, sign up and we're going to come get you. You're going to be A-OK, right? That's where registries really went wrong too. There was this like overcommitment. And the reality was that chances are they weren't coming to get you, right? So we started having to say things like, plan is or no one's coming for you. Um, what we utilize enhanced alerting for as well is, hey, it's a blue sky day. We're going to push out preparedness resources, guides, best practice resources, toolkits, checklists, so that you can start to build up your own personal evacuation plan or your own stay at home plan. So that you can start to think about, hey, who are the 5 people I would call if I needed an emergency transportation? That way, when there's an actual incident or event, you're ready for it. People with disabilities, we're good at planning, right? We have to make a lot of plans. We coordinate and keep a lot of plates spinning. Emergency preparedness, however, feels very scary, right? There's a real sense of vulnerability. And so oftentimes, instead of taking the very simple, straightforward action of signing up for enhanced alerting or even just emergency alerts, um, we just ignore it. But the reality is, we're no longer in that space where we can say, well, you know, disasters happen to other people, right? Because we've seen this exponential like uptick in the number of events. We've seen more and more disasters. And I don't know if there's anybody, hardly really in California anymore, that can say that they've not been impacted in some way, shape, or form, whether that's I had to evacuate my home or shelter in place, or I was impacted by the smoke from a wildfire, or the power went out. Um, there's nobody that can say they haven't been impacted by a disaster. And so we have to take personal responsibility for ourselves. And I see this as government needs to step up, right? Alerting authorities need to do more. They need to send better messages in more accessible formats in a timelier fashion. But we also need community based organizations to step up and amplify those messages and help create a culture of preparedness among the community. And we need individuals, the ultimate end user, to step up and take more action. Um, it's only when those things happen in conjunction with one another that we see significant progress get made on this. But it's just something that we have to promote um, and share. And as we do, more and more people will come on board.
Yeah, as you're talking about this very comprehensive plan and pieces and of individuals and organizations all working together to make this successful. What is what is the first thing that alerting authorities need to know about warning populations with chronic health conditions or access and functional needs? If you were to choose your top, I don't want to limit you to three, but your top three things like you really want them to know to improve. What can they do starting today?
Okay. Trying to think if I only get three.
You can choose more.
I would. I mean, first off, let's go to just what we've talked about already. First off, time matters, right? We might need hours, not minutes. I think specificity matters, right? I need to know what is happening, but when might it actually happen? How long might it last? And what specific actions should I take? Telling me there's a wildfire headed my direction isn't the same as saying there's a wildfire. It's going to get to you in 30 minutes. It's expected to, well, we're going to have to evacuate the entire area. You need to leave right now. And I also think, especially if we get to a place where we can be really, really specific, we need to just assume that standard messages should include things like, hey, don't forget your medication or your equipment, if you're going to a shelter, so you're evacuating your house. I can't tell you how many shelters I've been to, but I can tell you the number one thing, or actually, let me ask, I'll have you guess. What's the number one thing people with disabilities forget to take with them to a shelter?
Jeanette,
Well,
you
you just
first.
said, I know he just said, remember your
Medication.
medicine, your medications, and your medical equipment. But then you were talking about power. It's going to be something that's helping to sustain life that is just not present in the shelters. You have to bring it with you. That's what I think. But that's not very specific. I'm weaseling out of the answer because I'm afraid to guess wrong. I don't know. They leave their medicines behind. What do you
Well,
think, Eddie?
I was gonna say something to that effect too. I mean, medicine or specific medical equipment or something that they need, to
Okay,
just for
I'm
themselves.
not going to
But
accept something as they need as the final answer there, Eddie.
okay, let me see.
That's too broad. You're covering too many bases. Look, so number two is medicine,
Okay.
right? I can't tell you how many times you get the person that says, I take a heart medicine, I have to have it. I'm like, okay, what do you take? Well, it's like a red pill. It's a square. What's the dosage? I don't know. My daughter does that. What's your daughter's number? It's in my phone. Where's your phone? It's at the house. Like, all right, we want to help you. We really do, but you got to help us. Not number one, and I didn't expect anybody to get this. Wheelchair chargers.
Really?
People forget to take the charger for their power chair. Um, and I think about it like this. Uh, if you've ever had that experience that I've had far too many times of scrambling to get out the door to make a flight on time. And you're like, I think I got everything, let's go. And then you're on the plane and you're like, what did I forget? Um, it's hard, right? It's hard in that moment to actually think about the many things that we use, sometimes not even on a daily basis. But if we're developing a personal evacuation plan, then we do the same thing that we do, hopefully, when we go to catch a flight, which in my family includes making a list of things we need and taping it to the door. And on our way out, we make sure the boxes are ticked, and then we head out. But if we're not going that route, then yeah, we forget things like our medicine, which we rely on. We forget our backup uh, batteries, which are going to power the assistive devices we use. And we don't bring our wheelchair chargers. And so we're there at a shelter and we're stuck. So we've tried to support those needs. We have a national, we're able to work with Emotion. Uh, they're a complex rehab technology company and Red Cross. And we helped kind of broker this memorandum of understanding where they'll now provide those types of services and equipment at shelters nationwide. But yeah, that's the number one thing they forget. So
That's amazing.
not bad to
So,
include that stuff in the message.
yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we say, like, remember to bring your chargers. That might
Yeah.
not be specific enough as a reminder. Um, so years ago, when my family started wearing reading glasses,
Mm,
I got a doormat that says wallet, glasses, keys, and phone, which sounds very much like what you would do if you were singing a song, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. And so now as we walk out the door, we sing wallet, glasses, keys, and phone, keys and phone. And it's dumb, but we remember
Well,
if we
don't
check
stop.
our
How
pockets.
does it go? How does the song keep going?
You want me to keep singing? Wallet,
Absolutely.
glasses, keys, and phone, keys, and phone. And
Nice.
but chargers, I mean, that's so important. I think like with a power outage, that is something that we think about needing to make sure we have. But even going to a facility that is supposed to have power,
Well, and
that
we make
yeah,
assumptions that are bad all the time. And
yeah,
for like the charger, there are probably honestly just a couple types of adapters needed for if you have Apple, if you are non-Apple, right? One of those two, you know what to do. But for your example, for your wheelchair, I don't know if there's a specific adapter that it takes that may not be able to be used for others.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something to think about that, I haven't thought about before.
yeah. Well, so Vance, we have one last question for you. Eddie, did you want to ask it, or do you want
Yeah.
me to go?
Oh, well, because you're like the new, well, not the new, but new, right? You're chief of for Cal OES in the Office of Access and Functional Needs. Okay. You're there. What's next for you? Like, what is the next step? How, like, for Vance?
Um, so in terms of the work that we're doing,
Yeah, or
I,
personal.
I
Like, I don't know if are you going to announce that you're running for governor or anything for
no,
California?
no, I'm not running for governor of California. I'll tell you, we've
Okay.
got enough people running already. Um, so I think the big aim has been to create a cultural shift in the way that we think about how we plan, prepare, respond, and recover through the AFM lens, if you will, right? This lens of whole community, this understanding that each of us has a role and a responsibility to help ensure that these systems we all rely on work for everybody. If you think about somebody you know in your life who has an access or a functional need, and maybe it's a parent, a grandparent, spouse, a sibling, a child, a neighbor, a friend at church, someone that you care deeply about, and you ask yourself, what wouldn't I do to ensure this individual's safety and security and health during an emergency? What wouldn't I do to help ensure that they could maintain their dignity during this crisis? Right? The answer is there's nothing we wouldn't do to ensure those things. And so that's the approach we have to take, that we can reduce human suffering and loss of life, and we can be the right person at the right time in the exact moment when people in our community will most need us. And as we continue to share that, I think we add the tremendous work that Jeanette's doing, that you're doing, Eddie, that we're seeing these best practices and lessons learned, and we provide technical uh, knowledge and support, but none of that really does the job, does the trick, if you will, without that real fundamental understanding that we will never stand taller than when we bend to lift another. And so we've got some exciting projects that are coming on accessibility, and we've got new training courses, and we've got a really cool digital accessibility tool that's going to come. But more than anything, it's this, I think, opportunity to have a cultural change that inclusive alerting or emergency management, it's not about doing something extra. It's about doing emergency management better. Um, so yeah, so that's exciting for me.
It's truly bringing in the whole community and doing it better, you said earlier, means with, not for,
Yeah.
and bringing people together to be part of the solution. And it just there are tremendous opportunities. I'm so glad that you're highlighting those really key aspects to make it possible for people to be part of that solution. And so thank you so much for the work that you do, Vance, and for inspiring people. I'm inspired when I hear the things that you read in your newsletter that you send out, and getting to meet you personally and hearing your stories. I just appreciate you and what you're doing for the people of California and for the country. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And Jeanette, it's been incredible. So you participated in our National AFN Symposium,
I did. Yeah.
which we had, I think, over 3,000 people registered for that. And I think, to me, you're a great example of here you are, this nationally renowned subject matter expert who is being quoted in the New York Times. And at the same time that you're providing people with the technical knowledge and skills, capabilities they need to be effective in this area, you're always grounding it within this fundamental understanding of, hey, the way we alert matters. That this isn't just technical. It's maybe one of the more human things we do, and I feel like that gives people perspective that they didn't have before. Um, so I feel like whether you officially know it or not, you're doing so much to promote that integrated alerting, inclusive alerting, whole community based, centered, and focused alerting. And to me, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Vance. For people who are not watching, I'm doing a little heart symbol over my over my chest, saying thank you. I appreciate it. Mutual appreciation for the work that each other is doing. So thank you.
No, and just again, thank you, Vance. And I'm sure we'll have updates and we'll have other opportunities to talk because as new developments come, as features become available that you want to talk about, this is why we're here. So that not only you can talk about the advancements, but others can then say, "Oh, hey, that's a good idea. What can I do to employ that in my jurisdiction?" We all have different spheres of influence, but there's influence to be had, right? And so I look forward to future conversations. So thank you very much.
No, it's great. Next time we do this at Cougar Stadium, we'll
Um,
we, we'll
can
we'll
we make that
share
happen?
a cougar tail,
Uh huh.
um, which Jeanette, if you don't know, is like a
A
three,
dessert?
4 foot long maple bar
Oh, I'm there. Let's
which
do it.
they've got one with bacon now, which is delightful. Um, so yeah, we'll continue to make this happen, but let's do it out there.
I now have connections with the emergency manager at BYU.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we'll call her.
I like where this is going. Go
I do
Cougs.
too.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Thank
Sweet.
you, Vance. This
All
has
right,
All
been
right.
Vance.
great.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
Thank
one.
you.
That was an amazing conversation. I loved so many things that Vance had to share, and especially his key lessons for alerting authorities. The importance of timing, timely warnings. I think we cannot stress that enough, especially when we think about the concerns that people have about over alerting and alerting too soon or alerting too often. There are some populations that this is a life and death situation that if they don't get that information early, they're at such greater risk. And it doesn't necessarily mean using WIA to do it, because he was talking about all the other mechanisms to reach people, while still allowing them to reach or helping them to retain their privacy. And identifying those solutions is just such an important part of being an effective alert provider. I also love the stuff he said about specificity.
Hmm.
And this weekend, I was reading a report from my colleague who's been studying wildfires in Australia. She was in the US and she moved there. And it's Erica Kuligowski. Hi, Erica, if you're listening. She was at NIST and we went to school together. Her interviewee said that the thing that they were lacking in the messages that they had was exactly what Vance was saying, which is, where do I go to? Where do I, when you give me this information, I need it to be specific. I need to know, if I'm leaving, which direction do I go and how do I get there, and where am I going to? That's those additional specific pieces of information. And for the population that he was talking about today, it's also, how long will I be gone? Like, how do you plan for that? Just those details are so important for people who have additional needs.
No, I like it. And one thing that I think about is, if we don't do that, all we're doing is saying, yes, you should be scared. Congratulations,
Mm.
be scared. And I'm not going to give you those specifics to let you know how to be less scared or how to take an action.
Uh,
And it doesn't help when you're in that moment. You're trying to think of those basic things, but it's just like with your song that you sang, and thank you for singing it. It's like his checklist on the door. It's we have basic things that if we take the time, we can go through, but in those moments when time is not on your side, you need to have that advanced education. You need to be able to provide, when you send that alert, those specific things that people need to do to save their life or the life of someone else. And not only, I guess, survive, but to make sure that they can function wherever they go. Chargers, oh my goodness. If you were to take away the phone chargers from my children, um, good luck. It literally would be like you're taking oxygen, most likely, right? And but chargers, as you mentioned too, is an umbrella term, right? We don't mention chargers for what. So I really appreciate that. Again, all the stuff that he is currently doing, and there's still more to do. I have to acknowledge everybody out there in this space who's working on this stuff. Thank you.
mhm.
After this interview, I am thinking I need to adjust and look at my own SOP, right? The policies and what I'm doing to take what he has said and suggested and make sure that I'm applying as much that I can where I am, so that all of the different populations. And did you notice too? He mentioned, because access and functional needs, right?
Mhm.
That it literally could be a grandparent. Again, his
Yeah.
example that just takes longer to get in the car.
Yep.
And often we think of someone who's has a disability, and it really is much broader. It's everybody who can't just jump in the car and go to Taco Bell, in 3 minutes, as he said. So
Mhm.
I really appreciated this one, and I
Yep.
hope everybody listening did too.
Yeah. It was great. And we were talking with Vance after the recording ended about training, and it's something that we at the Alerting Authority have been providing and want and can provide to you. We will continue to do this across the country. But if you want training, if you would like us to help you to look through your messages to see how they could be improved, if you'd like to have your templates reviewed, if you'd like assistance in your policies, thinking about your SOPs and how integrating the things that we talked about today, integrating those into your policies, please reach out to the Alerting Authority. And I want to also highlight something that we're doing in March, March 9th through 16th. We are holding the first warning boot camp. This is an opportunity for you to get your most critical alerts put together and ready to go, so that you are primed for an event that might show up on your doorstep and you need to be able to send an alert in a timely fashion. And That's called the Warning Boot Camp. And you can find that on thewarnroom.com. And we have a couple spots left.
100%. Remember what Vance said, you can't buy your way out of an emergency, out of an
Yeah,
event. It's gonna happen
right.
at some point. So
Yep.
best to be prepared. So thank you, and I hope you guys sign up for the Warning Boot Camp and everything else. We are the Alerting Authority. We are grateful for you to be our listener. We hope that, again, you will ask us questions and give us topics that we can also talk about. We acknowledge your work and effort. We know that every second has a story, and we want to be here to help share yours. So until next time, have a great day.